Okay. Welcome, everyone. My name is Megan Crossfield. I am the board president for OER Arizona, and I have the pleasure to introduce Dr. Karen Palmer here to do a presentation workshop. Just getting started, a crash course in OER. Karen is an English faculty and the general education program director at Yavapai College and has produced many OER. So she is definitely an expert. So I'm excited to have her here today to share her knowledge with you. So I'll pass it off to you, Karen.
All right, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm going to I just link to my slides in the chat just in case you all want to follow along or have access to the links there. They're updated a little bit from what I uploaded to Hoover, but when Hoover, I guess they ran out of space, so I didn't want to try to upload it. So you have them. Go ahead and share. Okay, so this class I first did in 2020, so just 3 years ago. And I have the link to that recording in the slides. So if you want to just see how close I get to what I did the first time, you have that. Or if you just want to compare notes, there's just a few changes. But really, what this is, it really is a crash course. I'm going to give you just enough to make you dangerous with OER and hopefully get you kind of launched. How many of you, let me see, now that I'm sharing my screen, it's hard to see everybody. So let me just adjust the way I'm looking at all of you so that hopefully I can see. Oh, can you guys? Yeah, you can still see my screen. I just can see all of you now. Okay, so how many of you used OER? Actually, you know what? Let's do this. Put in the chat. If you're a total newbie, never used OER, you have no idea, put a 1. You've used OER a little bit, or at least you know what it is, put a 3. And if you are just here because you want to see what's going on, put a 5. Like if you know what you're doing, you could put a 5. So 1, have no idea. 3, you have some ideas. 5, you're good, but you just want a refresher. Okay, a lot of 3s, 1 5, no 1s. Okay, good. So we'll just kind of skip through some of the stuff if people just haven't put one in because they don't want to call themselves out. That's okay too. Okay, so back when I created this presentation, I was at YC as the faculty liaison for our OER course. So we have an OER course that I think is still running, and we have faculty in that class teaching other faculty all about OER. So I was asked to create a crash course, a mini course, and I pulled from that course and experience to create this experience. So hopefully this is really helpful to you all and maybe even gives you a framework to share with others, which is amazing. So a little bit just more about me. So these are 4 textbooks that I have created with OER. So the Worry-Free Writer is what I use for English 101 and English 102. And I created all of these a little bit differently. So this one mostly is my own materials. It's 26 years of composition and all of my notes and all of my lectures and all of my stuff that I give to students that I started with that body of work and then added it. So that's what that book is. With Diving into Rhetoric and Say Her Name. Diving into Rhetoric is an intro to rhetoric text, and Say Her Name is women in literature. And then More Than Words is basically an intro to linguistics. So Say Her Name kind of is about the same as the Worry Writer, just materials that I use to teach my course that I pulled together into a textbook. But Diving into Rhetoric and More Than Words were brand new courses that I'd created, and I needed them to transfer to AU and HU. So I worked with those schools and looked at what textbooks that they were using because they wanted me to use the same textbooks. And I said, I'm not doing that. I have to use OER because that's what's best for students. They don't need to buy 3 or 4 textbooks for this class. So I went on a deep dive looking for materials and pulled everything together into these books. So I made all of these, with the exception of More Than Words in 2020. Now, 5 years later, I'm in the revision cycle and I'm wrapping up this year with getting into rhetoric. So this one will be finished by the end of spring. So I've done a lot of work with OER. But I think what's important is why I first got started and probably why a lot of you are here, which is my students. So even when I was a student, I could not afford to buy textbooks. One summer I took a Shakespeare class and I went and I checked the book out from the library because that was the only way I could take a class. I couldn't buy, it was like a $2 textbook summer class, 5. So when I started teaching, I gave all of my students my tips. How can you save money on textbooks? You can check it out from the library. You can buy an older edition. You can, ask your teacher if they have an old edition or an extra copy on their shelf. So when I heard about OER, I was really excited about it because it was already something that was really important to me. And these are just some of the reasons, which you all, I'm sure, are familiar with. And these are old graphs. But we have so many students who are food insecure and housing insecure. They need every dollar. And by asking them to purchase an expensive textbook, that's that they aren't able to feed their families or, house themselves or buy gas to get to class. So it's really important when we can reduce the cost for students, especially over other classes, that makes a huge difference to them. These are just some quotes. People are really making decisions between can I afford my materials and can I eat? So these are just some things that really, really stood out to me as I was going along my own journey, about how important it was to really help students by creating these OER materials. And I think one of the biggest things, of course, is how does this impact students? It's really important to understand why it's not just about saving money, but it helps students because if they don't have to buy the book, then they're going to do better in the class. So this is kind of what students do. If they can't buy, they don't have the money for a book, 64% just don't even buy it. 43% take less classes. 41% don't even write. 23% off the course that they start. So that's really not good for our students because they need to complete their education so they can do better and improve their lives. So, oh wow, this slide didn't come across very well, but obviously OER benefits students by saving them money. It increases their success because they have access to the materials, and there are additional benefits for historically underserved populations. Here's some quick graph on the difference in GPA for OER users. So in case you weren't convinced, yes, I'll turn off my camera. Thanks, Megan. Okay, hopefully this is a little bit better. uh, so again, just a quick little graph that shows the difference in GPA for OER users. So more you can see that the benefits between for our underserved students are higher than the benefits for our regular students. But it's just like we learn all the time in accessibility when we talk about accessibility that when we make something accessible, one person, we're everyone. And so, maybe there are students who they can technically afford to buy a textbook. It still makes it easier for them to be able to access their textbook. Okay, so what is OER? OER are excellent materials and resources offered freely and openly for anyone, and they're available under a license that allows us to retain, revise, remix, reuse, and redistribute. So basically, OER is all about sharing ideas and resources, collaborating on projects, being part of a community. And so it's not just something we do for our own students, it becomes a part of who we are, and we become a part of a larger community. So this is another thing that really drew me to OER. Once I started getting into the space, it's just really neat to and passion have for helping students and helping other people. And as faculty, sometimes we talk about our rights to our materials, and I understand that argument, but when I think I look at my metrics. All of my books are online, so they're open for anyone to use. And my Worry-Free Writer book had like 170,000 uses. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, this is not just my students that are benefiting from this information. There were people linking in from colleges. I could tell what college they were from all over the country, and then students. And so this work that I did for my students is benefiting not just my students and maybe other students at my institution, but it's benefiting students across the nation. So it's that you know, kind of intrinsic motivation of feeling like you're doing something, you're using your talents to make a difference in the world. And not saying that my textbooks are the very best. You all could probably adopt them and just want to edit the heck out of them. And that's totally fine. That's one of the things I love about OER is that it's that continuous improvement. But it's just amazing to see how that impacts other people. So um, one of the things that's really important is that faculty bring that OER to life. So open educational resources are innovative, not just because they're free, but because of how we adopt and adapt them. And this is something to pull in my next, I'm presenting again right after this about a dissertation project I did. I wrapped up last year. One of the things that education researchers have been telling us for decades is that in order for effective, it has to be adapted to the context of the teacher and her classroom. And so if we're just throwing OER into our classes because somebody told us to, or, because we're in a hurry or whatever, it may have some benefit, but if we're not really critically thinking about those resources and adapting them to our students, then it can cause more, it can cause issues for students. For example, if you adopt a textbook, but you don't change any of your assessments, and students are studying a text, but the textbook doesn't align with your assessments, then they're not going to do because studying the right materials. So it's really important, but it's not just in OER, it's in just all educational research talks about that, the importance of teachers needing to adapt what they're using to their own students and to their own styles. Okay, so this just kind of goes over the reading. So you get to make and own a copy, control copy of the content. So you can download things, you can duplicate them, you can store them, you can manage them, whether you create them or adopt them yourself. You can reuse that the way it's licensed. You can revise it, again, depending on the way it's licensed, and we'll look at licenses in just a second. You can remix things. So my texts are all remixes. So I'm mixing up my stuff with other stuff, and it's a beautiful thing, I think. And then you can redistribute. So I can share copies of those remixes. So that's all my books are on the web. So I'm sharing those copies out with other folks. Okay, so with open licensing, if I were just going to write my book, my Worry-Free Writer, and publish it, no, if someone took it and copied it, they would be plagiarizing. That would be copyright infringement. But because I put a C license on, I'm saying, hey, I want to share this with you all. Just let people know that I created it. Really all it is. Just kind of that nod to the person who made the material and saying thanks. Thank you for letting me use this. I appreciate it. Here's my version of it. And so I love that about OER. So there's different ways we can do this. The least restrictive is CC, which means you can basically do anything you want You can even sell it. So you can take something, you can mix it all up, you can sell it, and as long as you give that attribution, you're good. The most restrictive is this one at the bottom, CC by NCND, which means that you say who made it, but you can't make any copies of it and you cannot use it commercially. So you can use it in your classroom, but you can't sell it or make any money off of it, and also can't you mix it up. So no means it has to stay the way that it is. Okay, so we're going to practice now. I've given you all the basics. Now we're going to jump into doing. This is where I make you dangerous. Okay, so let me see if I can grab the link on here. I'm going to put this link in the text, in the chat. Okay, so I want you to go to the search Creative Commons, and I'm going to go there here so you all can see. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go on here and I just want you to find an image. So you can search for anything. I'm just going to search for a cat. Oh, apparently I'm searching for a cast. That's okay. That works too. Okay, so I'm going to get all of these images and I'm just going to pick one. So this is what I want you all to do. You can multitask. Everybody has their camera turned off, like, which hopefully making this less choppy. But once you found your image, I'm going to have you license it. And so let's see. I'm going to put this link in the chat. So what I want you all to do is you're going to find your image. So I'm just going to do this little Lego guy. So I'm going to copy the image link and I'm going to put that into here. That's my original content. I'm not going to revise it this time, so ignore that middle column, but we're going to do the attribution. Your is going to have the name, who it's by, and what the license is. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and put it in here. So when you all start putting stuff in here, I'll know that you're following with me. I'll put the example so you can see. Okay, so this is called episode forecast. So that's what I'm going to put in as my title. So awesome. I see somebody doing some. Episode forecast is my name. So of the image. Okay. And it's by this person. So I'm just going to copy. And I'm going to copy the link address because then it'll be, maybe I can link it then. Nope, that's not it you. Oh, there's his name. Okay. And I'm just going to say licensed. And then if I go back here, it's going to tell me that it's licensed CC. Now, if you're smart, you can even just kind of do the copy text down here. And that makes it a lot easier. But it's kind of like, it's a good stepping stone to just use that. And then you can see what it's actually supposed to be. But it's good to practice doing it yourself. Because we use ourselves, then we're more likely to retain that information. Looks beautiful. So what you'll notice between what I started doing myself and then the one that I copied and pasted is that all three of the pieces of my attribution are linked or should be linked. So highlight the title and go back over here and I can just copy the image as so that I can put into my, um, then I can insert the link here. And then I want to link the creator. So I can go back and copy the link address for the creator and link that here. And then a link to the licensing, which is going to copy from this because, oh, copy URL. So this is how easy it is. I don't know how many of the rest of you maybe teach any kind of writing, but in English 101 and one in all of my classes, my students have to learn how to do MLA citation, in some cases also APA citation. There's a lot of work to that. So creating an attribution for Creative Commons sources for OER is like a walk in the park compared to all of the risks and the rules. You don't have to have a manual for this, although there are resources, but this is the basic thing. You just say what it is and link it, who it's by and link it, and then give the link the license. And that's it. So it's easy to do this. You're doing a great job. Awesome. Okay, so that is what we do if we find, if you find an image and you want to put it in your Canvas class or Blackboard class or whatever that you use, then you can just put that image in there and then in the bottom you want to put the attribution. This is the same if it's a text source or a video or anything that you find that's licensed Creative Commons, then you can attribute it this way. The only thing that you have to be careful about is that you actually are adopting things that are licensed with Creative Commons licenses because you can't just take a traditionally copyrighted text and then give it a Creative Commons attribution. It has to be already licensed Creative Commons. You guys are doing great. Okay, so I'm going to let you keep playing with this and back over here because I want to keep moving. Okay, so you know how to adopt and uh, just create your attribution for something. Now we're going to talk about how we can adapt those things. So there's a couple of steps adapting content. The first one in your needs. So like I said, with my rhetoric textbook and my linguistics textbook, I had to create a list of the modules I needed to include and what resources I was going to need. And then I had to do research. I had to go and try to find Creative Commons sources for all my needs. So all of the different parts of my textbook that I knew I needed to have for students, I needed to figure out where I was going to get those. So I did a lot of research on that. And then I had to choose a resource to adopt. Now, in some cases, there's already a book out there. So one of the texts that I don't have, that I didn't have a picture for is the Rough Rider's Guide, which is at Yavapai College, our mascot is the Rough Rider. And so a colleague of mine and I made a Rough Rider with WR instead of RID guide to writing. So basically a grammar handbook. And we were to find an older Creative Commons licensed grammar handbook that as a model. And so we pulled that, we reordered the chapters and we added materials and updated and all of those things. But because we had that base, it was a lot easier to create that than it was to create a book like Intro to Rhetoric textbook because that was from scratch. So Once you choose your resources to adopt, then you work on adopting them, and then you want to license it appropriately. And there are some rules for that. There are some licenses that work together and some that don't. I'm not going to go into that right now because this is just a quick kind of overview. So, this is what it kind of looks like to determine your needs. And there is a link here where you can get, in fact, actually, let's see if I can just open this for y'all so you can see. This resource that's linked in the presentation has all kinds of resources for planning out a course, for doing a course mapping, but this spreadsheet is what you see a little bit here. This is kind of how I do it. So I have the module, and then I have my lessons in the module, and then what assignments, the learning outcomes, the OER resources, whether you have them or don't have them. This is kind of what we use too in our OER class. Now I do this a little bit differently. If you haven't done backwards design, there's a book called by Wiggins and Mateague, and they talk about backwards design. And basically what that means is you start with your outcomes, then you think about what is the best way to assess those outcomes, and then you build your content from there. So what practice do students need? What reading do they need to do? And that leads you to those OER resources. So that's whatever way that you do your course planning, you want to have that kind of backwards design. So if you have a class that's already set up, maybe easy as you know, well, I have this book now and this is what it covers, so this is the material that I need to find. So it just depends on your situation, but that's what this determining your needs is all about, is figuring out what content do you need to create the resource students need. And I know I created textbooks. Not everybody does that. A lot of my colleagues look at their LMS course and they say, okay, so for this module, this is what students need, and they just plug those resources right into their course rather than creating an external book. It's just the way my brain works. I wanted to be able to have everything together into a book kind of format because it was familiar to me and I felt like it would be familiar to students, but it works really well either way. It's just about getting those materials to students in a way that makes sense for you and for them. Okay, so then there are a lot of different sources available. There's more than this now for finding good resources that you can adopt and adapt. For literature, I really love Project Gutenberg because it's a collection of books, if you guys don't know this, that are in the public domain now because were published so long ago. So you can find some really cool stories and books and even nonfiction, like history kinds of things in Project Gutenberg. And because they're in the public domain, you can adopt and adapt them. So those are really handy. In my literature courses, I can find some older stuff that I can just put right in the textbook for students. The thing that's in the little wiggly cloud is the online encyclopedias. So Wikipedia is Creative Commons, which is one of the reasons that, since Wikipedia came out, I know faculty always tell us don't use Wikipedia as a source. But Wikipedia has, even way back in the day, I remember, gosh, over a decade ago, they did a study comparing the accuracy of Wikipedia to the accuracy of the actual, like, Britannica, and Wikipedia was more accurate than Britannica. The reason that we don't want students to use that, at least the reason I don't, is because someone can go in, because it's open source, and change it. And a student could get to it right at the moment where someone has put in false information or verified information. So don't do that, but you are, as a subject expert, able to verify information that can be a great source for common knowledge things. I used Wikipedia or the British Library or something similar for a lot of the author bios in my literature textbooks because there's no sense reworking the wheel if you're under a time crunch. This can take a lot of time. So that is a resource. Some of these other ones are sources where you can find a whole textbook. So it always makes sense to me, especially the further we get along in time and the more people are doing this work, to see if you can find a textbook that can serve as a foundation. Maybe you'll find one that does what you want it to do, and you just have to make a few little changes to make it fit your context, which is really helpful. Once you've found your stuff, you're adapting it. There's a lot of fun reasons to adapt aside from it just being more effective, but these are kind of the reasons why it's more effective if you adapt it, because you can make it more accessible to your people. You can adopt for cultural differences, especially if people have adopted resources a long time ago, they may not speak to the population of people that you're talking to. And so you can add in different examples and different pictures, things like that. Maybe an audience. So you find some created level audience and write it down to in college and high school students so that the language makes sense to them. And also your teaching situation. So just like this is a quick little crash course. What I would give you all for this class would probably be different from what I would give students in a full course. So there's a lot of reasons to adapt and a lot of a, that hopefully to illustrate adapting more more successful for students. And this one is something that I'm thinking about with our Yavapai College is working toward becoming a Hispanic serving institution. I don't think we're quite there yet, but we're really close. And so one of the things that I've thought about is translating my text into Spanish and maybe some other languages too, as needed. We have a lot of exchange students. So that's something you can do to a text is translate it into a different language. You can correct things. One of my initial objections years and years ago to OER is that that was recommended to me had all kinds of errors in it. I thought, I'm not going to use this. I didn't realize that I could make corrections. So if there's things that are wrong, you can fix it. You can update it. If it's outdated, you can update the information and you can add to it. It's very dry. There's words. You can add videos and pictures and exercises. So lots of fun you can do to adapt. Okay, so the thing that you do is you have to license it and attribute it. Some of the licensing depends on what you've pulled, like what the license is of the thing that you've adapted. But there are, in the slides, there's a link to recommended practices for attribution, which is really helpful. But basically, it's the same kind of thing that we did before. You want to have the title, you want to have the author, and you want to have the license, and then you want to retitle it. So you're saying this works, so your title that you gave it, so Worry-Free Writer or the Rough Rider's Guide or whatever it is a derivative of, and then you would have the original, the title and the original source, who that was by and what their license was. And then we're going to say my thing that I created is licensed under whatever the license is by me. So you guys see those three common things. So you have the title, the author, and the license. And when we're adapting something, we're going to have the original title, author, and license, but also our new title, our name as the author, our license, which is probably to match, not always, but it depends on. So I could adopt something that's CC by, and I could license it CC by NC, but I couldn't adopt something that was CC by NC and license it CC by. So you can go less restrictive or restrictive when you revise something or adapt something, but you can't go backwards. You can't adapt something that is restrictive and make your license less restrictive. Hopefully that makes sense. And you publish it. So what we're going to do next, I think this is just kind of, yeah. So we're going to do something real quick Let's see. Megan, how much time do we have left?
Like about 25 minutes,
Oh,
about
good. We have
20
lots.
minutes. Yeah.
20 minutes?
Yeah, then you have some Q&A time.
Okay, perfect. All right, so that really was a crash course. I know that was fast, but we're going to slow down now and you guys are going to practice just like we did before. But this time we're going to practice adapting and licensing. Okay, so I want you all to think of one thing, think of one thing you need for a class or any situation. You can make something up if nothing comes to the top of your mind, or you can just search for something that's in your subject area. But you're going to assess your needs. We're going to look at content and then we're going to create the license. Okay, so here are just ideas. Maybe you need a textbook. Maybe you need a video. Maybe you need an image, a worksheet, an assignment, a PowerPoint, a handout, just a wiki. So these are all kind of different things. For example, if I were, let's see, what is a good, we're going to go back to here. Let's just go to the open textbook library and I'll put this link in. I'm going to put this link in the chat for you all. So I'm going to send you here because this is a good place to go. And then you can browse the subjects. And I'm going to look at humanities. And I'm just going to go to literature because that's my area. And then I can see, oh, what ideas are out here. So here's a literature book. You can see what year this was created. You can see what license it is. I can look more at, and then I can see a PDF, an ebook, or I can just look at it online. So I'm just going to look at it online. My internet is slow. I hope that this is still not super choppy for y'all. So this one is in, looks like a Pressbooks type situation. So I'm going to look at Shakespeare. So here is this chapter on Shakespeare. Okay. So I'm going to say, all right, I want to do a unit in a class on Shakespeare. So I'm going to just arbitrarily decide for the purposes of this class that I'm going to use this introduction here. And this is what I'm going to adapt for this exercise. So I'm going to do the same thing that we did before. I'm going to copy the link to the original source, go back to here, and I'm going to put the original source. And then I'm going to put my revised content, and then I'm going to create a new attribution. Okay? So I'm going to give you guys about 15 minutes to just kind of go do some research, go play, and find something that you want to revise. And we're just going to do a simple revision. If you're super not sure, you can even go to Wikipedia, which is fun. And you can look up anything on Wikipedia. So, let's see, what's something interesting? Somebody give me something in the chat to look up. That's fun. Is there anything anybody wants to know about today? Okay. Okay, I need to do this differently. Search Wikipedia, MLA. Okay, so if I just look for MLA in Wikipedia, it
Looks like
Release
we
it.
might have lost Karen. Oh, there she is. She's back.
Sorry, you guys. I don't know what is going on with it's like a sunny day and my internet is horrible. So we're going to try my phone for a while and see how that does. Okay, so here is the Wikipedia site. Now, if you're looking for a video, you go to YouTube.
Oh, Karen, are you trying to share your screen still?
Oh, yes. I have to do it again, don't I?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so let's just go to YouTube. Why am I? Okay, well, let's just do this. MLA documentation. Okay, so here's all these MLA formats. And let's see, we can go to filters. And I bet right here under features, there's Creative Commons. So we can click on that. And then we have hopefully some things that are Creative Commons. So here's an introduction to citation styles by
As in the
MLA.
midst of applying for residency.
We don't need to watch the commercial, but let's see. Here we can see the license. So you can use that. So for adaption, so this would be something you could adopt and just put the license with the video. If you were going to adapt it, you would have to actually make a change to the video. So if you just wanted to use this video, all you would have to do is do the attribution just like we did for the image in the first exercise. So you don't have to do all of the extra unless you're actually changing the video. So if you're going to, um, let's see, I'm wondering if, for example, if you used one of those, if you were recording the video while you talked over the video, then you could do that, I think. You could just do an attribution like this is a revision but I almost think that makes it a new video if you video over something and make your own content. We get to get into some tricky stuff, and that's not what we're going to do. So let's say that I want to just give students an introduction to what MLA is, and I want to use this. That might be easier to demonstrate than what I was doing before. So I'm going to go to, let's see, I'll just go here and I'm going to paste the original and the link. And I bet actually at the bottom it's going to have the citation somewhere. Down here, the very bottom, text is available under the Creative Commons license. So I would want to put the original citation would be Modern Language Association by Wikipedia, licensed CC by 4.0, CC by SA 4.0. Okay. All right. So when I do my edits, that means that I need to have the same CC by 4.0 as my license. But first I need to edit. So if I'm going to edit, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm going to edit this. If this is my original, one of the things I do if I am going to use something like this in my class is I get rid of all of these links. So Wikipedia links everything to other things. So I'm going to just get rid of all of the links because I don't need that. I'm not going to include all of the little things, so I'm going to get rid of those. So this is a really tiny change, but it's still a change, right? I'm editing what Wikipedia has as their content. Oops. Okay. And then I might want to read through, I probably don't want this to be bold. I just want it to be normal. I don't want this to be bold. I just rebolded it. Let's see. And I feel like maybe I don't need this for students. Probably don't need this part for students. So I'm just gonna shorten it down a little bit. That's gonna be my revision for today. So if you go back to our slides, which are way over here, we're going to look at this, and I'm just going to copy this and I'll paste this into the chat as well for you all. So then you can just copy and paste that into your citation here. Okay, and so this work, I'm going to call this about MLA. And that's a derivative of, let's see, Wikipedia calls this the Modern Language Association. Derivative of, and remember that I want to link all of this. So I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to grab the link. Link that. And the original author is Wikipedia. So I want to link that, which I can probably just link from here. And then their license was CC by SA 4.0. And I can grab the link directly to that Creative Commons licensing right here and add that in. And then I'm putting in my title again. I'm going to put in that license again. So I'm just going to copy this because it's oops, because it's a CC by SA, I want to use CC by SA again. I'm going to get rid of this under, and then I'm going to put my name. And that's it. So even if you're just making a small change or pulling something out, so this tiny paragraph is already edited from that whole MLA or that whole Wikipedia page on the Modern Language Association. So even by just taking out that one first paragraph, I've adapted that. I've changed it. So I want to make sure that I'm recognizing that what I'm putting here is not the full exact text that Wikipedia had on their page. But it's not complicated. It just takes a little bit of time to get used to this different kind of not citing, but using the attributions instead of trying to cite in MLA or APA format, whichever, or Chicago, whatever you all are used to. So I want to see, it looks like we've got a couple people who are working, and we probably have maybe 5 more minutes. Megan, or are we running to the end? Sorry, I keep asking for time.
No, you have 10 minutes left in the whole presentation. So if you wanted to leave time for Q&A, maybe about 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Up to
Okay,
you.
that's what I was thinking. Okay, thank you, Megan. So if y'all, I'm going to give you just a few minutes to practice, and I'll leave this up so we can kind of see what you're doing. It's like class. We run out of time. And then I'll let you all ask questions. In fact, if you all have questions right now, I think if you have questions about what we're doing, then you should ask them now, and then I can help you while folks are working through this practice. Joanna, which site did you mean? Did you find it? Sorry, I didn't see that question earlier. One where I researched the topic. Oh, that was the, let's see, not this one. Let me go back up. That was this one. So the open textbook library, and I'll copy the link and put it in here for you. I don't have the other ones linked, but that one is a good one. The British Library has a lot of really cool resources that are Creative Commons licensed. Not everything on, oops, sorry, I'm at all kinds of places here. Where am I going? The British Library has all kinds of, yes, some of them are. The British Library has all kinds of cool stuff that I found when I was doing my rhetoric textbook. And there's some really cool stuff that other countries are doing as well that you can find if you just search the web. So it depends on how much time you have, where you're going to look at, where you end up going. But there are so many great resources. I just learned, gosh, I think in the last year, one of the top chemistry publishers decided that they were going to retire. And Megan's nodding her head, you know what I'm talking about. And they made their whole textbook just OER. It's in OpenStax, right, Megan?
Yeah, it's like one of the most used, I think it's organic chemistry textbooks, and he was retiring and he did it a tribute to his daughter who was struggling for like it was just a really powerful story. And so he wanted to make it free. And he worked with OpenStax and made it a free textbook.
Yeah, so it's very cool. Okay, so
Yeah.
how do you cite the attribution on slides or in your published document? So I think it depends on, there's lots of different ways to do it, Alexis. So sometimes, let me actually, well, here, let's look at this. So this is an example of, this is a, it looks like a college press books site, but we can go all the way down to the bottom of this page. In my textbooks, I have attributions at the bottom. So I'll have individual attributions for a chapter at the bottom, but you can also just cite the whole book. So this book is just all attributed the same way, and that license is at the very bottom. So for a slideshow, I could do, let's see, I think I actually have some examples here. If I go up to here, see this I just linked. I was very lazy in my I didn't put the name of the chart or the author of the chart. I just put where I got the chart. So you can do it that way and just cite on a slide, or you could go all the way to the end and you could do your attribution at the end. So I don't think there's a really specific, like, this is where you have to put your slides. You can put it wherever it makes the most sense in your document. I have found that if you're writing like a chapter in a textbook, it's a lot easier to put the attributions at the end rather than breaking up the text with different attributions. But I do put attributions for individual photos right with the photo in the text where they're inserted. Does that help? Yeah, nope, you don't need the date. It's a lot simpler than your MLA citation. Yeah, thank you, Megan, for confirming that. It's more accessible to put the attributions at the end. And yes, definitely your librarians can really help locate information. So if you know that you want to create a resource and you're thinking, oh man, this is going to be a lot of time, reach out to your librarians, look at there are so many great sites where you can get help and get information where things are pulled together. There's also a lot of places that are disparate. One of my linguistic sources is from a different country, but it's all open and it's amazing. I think it's more geared towards graduate students, but I was able to use that, just pull certain things out and incorporate those into my linguistics class and textbook, and that was super helpful. Canada has some good resources, so it's really fun to get to see this work happening all over the world. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and then we'll see if we have any other questions. Thank you, Megan. That's what I was looking for, the OER Azona hubs on the OER Commons. That's a really great place to find resources too, especially those created by our Arizona colleagues. So the last thing to do is publish it. There's lots of different options. You can do it through Google. You could just do a Google Doc. You could do Google Sites. You can use Canvas. You can publish your stuff in Canvas. I used Pressbooks, and then recently I just took all my stuff off of Pressbooks, and I use Pressbooks actually has a free plugin for WordPress. And so I'm going to just show you maybe, feel like maybe my internet stopped working again, or I'm being impatient. But anyways, I pulled them off and put them on my own website. Merlot is another option. There's probably a lot more now. But that's kind of the that's kind of the end result is you want to publish your OER resources, whether it's just publishing them for your students or whether it's publishing them for a broader audience, that is up to you. But that's the important part because if you don't publish it out, then it stops with you. And what happens then is that you lose that ability to adapt because if you I've read across sources that the author kind of decided they were done. Whatever happened, they were done. And so the source is just sitting there languishing. But because it's online and available, I can pull it and revise it and revitalize it and use it again for my students. Whereas if I never published it, if that person had never published it out there for us to find, it would just be languishing somewhere in her files. So I think that is really important to get this, once you've got something, publish it out because even if it's an assignment or a chapter or something, thanks, Melissa. Yeah, LibGuides is great too. Just get that stuff out there because you never know, it might be exactly what someone else is looking for. Okay, so we are at the end. I think we maybe have 1 minute left. And I just wanted to leave you with this quote. In such unprecedented times, faculty need to reconsider the financial consequences of their course material choices and act with more compassion. One of the best ways they can positively and tangibly impact their students is to make the switch to open educational resources as soon as possible. And this was probably you can tell by the wording. The context was 2020. It was in the Daily Texan back then in 2020, but I think it's a really powerful quote. So I'm going to stop the share. You guys hopefully have the link to the presentation to that practice doc. You can feel free to use those, share them out, whatever you need, and reach out to me if you have any questions. I think all my info is on my in my Whova background info.
Yeah, right on time. Thank you so much, Karen. This was a great presentation, and thank you everyone for participating.
Yeah, I appreciate you all. Thank you for coming.